At the bottom of the ocean, 4,000 meters below the surface, researchers have made a spectacular discovery that could completely overturn our understanding of the origin of life and evolution. Deep down in complete darkness, oxygen is being produced, in a place where oxygen should not actually be able to form.
Stay tuned to find out what this is all about, what revolutionary consequences this discovery could have, and to see the exciting original footage from the ocean floor. A warm welcome, everyone. First of all, yes, I shaved. Sorry, guys. I hope you can still watch the video anyway. And now, just imagine. Scientists are measuring the oxygen levels on the ocean floor at a depth of 4,000 meters, and they actually expect these levels to decrease, as has always been the case in previous measurements. Instead, the oxygen level suddenly rises to 3 times as much. Incredible. If you always want to be informed about such fascinating discoveries, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing doesn't cost anything. You'll never miss another video, and it really helps me out. If you've already subscribed, giving the video a thumbs up helps a lot. Maybe we can hit 5,000 likes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Between Hawaii and the west coast of Mexico lies the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, or CCZ for short, a gigantic area on the seafloor that is larger than the whole of Europe. And down here, in complete darkness, millions of potato-sized rocks are scattered, known as polymetallic nodules. These nodules are packed with valuable metals such as nickel, copper, cobalt, and manganese. That is why they are also called manganese nodules, and these are precisely the materials needed for batteries, for example in electric cars.
It's no wonder then that mining companies are already champing at the bit and would love to start extracting these nodules right away. But then this spectacular discovery got in the way.
Marine scientist Andrew Sweetman from the Scottish Association for Marine Science and his team conducted experiments on the seabed. They actually only wanted to measure how much oxygen the organisms down there consume. This is usually done using special chambers that are placed on the seabed and then measure the oxygen content over several days. In all previous measurements of this kind, the oxygen value always decreased as expected. But this time, everything was different. Instead of decreasing, the oxygen content in the chambers rose continuously, from an initial level of around 185 micromoles per liter to over 800 micromoles in some cases. The first thought was, of course, that the sensors must be broken. So new sensors were sent down. Same result. The same phenomenon was observed repeatedly in different areas of the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. Oxygen is being produced down there in the depths.
Now you might be asking yourselves, so what? What's so spectacular about that? The answer, down there it should actually be impossible for oxygen to form.
Until now, we assumed that oxygen on Earth was produced almost exclusively through photosynthesis. That is, by plants, algae, and cyanobacteria which use sunlight to produce oxygen from CO2 and water. But at a depth of 4,000 meters, there is hardly any sunlight. That is why researchers call this newly discovered oxygen dark oxygen. Andrew Sweetman says of the discovery, "For aerobic life to begin on our planet, there had to be oxygen, and our previous understanding was that the Earth's oxygen supply began with photosynthetic organisms. But now we know that oxygen is produced in the deep sea, where there is no light. I think we therefore need to ask how we should rethink this. Where could aerobic life have begun?"
That's truly a revolutionary statement when you think about it.
Because if oxygen production can occur even without the influence of sunlight, then life on Earth may have originated in a completely different way than previously thought. Perhaps not in sun-drenched shallow waters, but deep down at the bottom of the ocean. And even more exciting, if oxygen can be produced here on Earth in the dark, then perhaps it can also be produced on other celestial bodies in our solar system. For example, on Jupiter's moons Europa and Ganymede, or Saturn's moon Enceladus. There, beneath kilometers thick layers of ice, are vast oceans without sunlight. If oxygen could also be produced there through some process, it would greatly increase the chances of extraterrestrial life.
But back to the crucial question, how the hell does dark oxygen actually form? Sweetman and his team investigated every possible explanation. Could it be biological? Are there perhaps some bacteria down there that can produce oxygen without light? A few microorganisms are indeed capable of this. But even when the researchers poisoned their samples with mercuric chloride to kill all the bacteria, oxygen continued to form. So the biological explanation can be ruled out. Then they tested whether radioactive radiation from the rock could possibly split water molecules. But the calculations showed that the natural radioactivity down there could at most account for 0.5% of the measured oxygen. So that's not a solution either.
And then came the most likely explanation. The polymetallic nodules themselves. These metal lumps could function like natural batteries. The nodules grow layer by layer over millions of years, depositing various metals. As mentioned, manganese, nickel, copper, cobalt. These different metal layers have different electrical potentials.
And if you measure the voltage between 2 points on such a tuber, you actually get up to 0.95 volts. That's pretty damn close to the 1.23 volts that would theoretically be needed to split more water into hydrogen and oxygen by electrolysis.
And with the right catalysts, which are contained in the manganese oxides of the nodules, it could even work with less voltage. The nodules could actually work like millions of tiny electrolysis cells that constantly produce small amounts of oxygen. Andrew Sweetman describes it this way: what if you had millions of these tiny batteries on manganese oxide particles in the nodules, and electrons were flowing through the internal layer structure of the manganese oxide? Natural geobatteries on the seabed that have been producing oxygen for millions of years. And this is where it gets really explosive for the mining industry, because if these nodules do indeed play an important role in the deep sea ecosystem, then their industrial mining could be an ecological disaster. Oceanographer Lisa Levin, who was not involved in the study, says, "This is an excellent example of what it means to have the deep sea as a frontier. As a relatively unexplored part of our planet, there are still new processes to be discovered that challenge our knowledge of life in our oceans. The production of oxygen on the seafloor by polymetallic nodules is a new ecosystem function that must be taken into account when assessing the impact of deep sea mining. We know so little about the deep sea. Over 80% of the oceans are still unexplored, and now we are discovering that fundamental processes may be taking place down there that we had no idea about." Oxygen production without light changes our understanding of the origin of life, of evolution, of the possibilities for life on other worlds. Of course, there is also criticism of the study.
Some scientists, interestingly including those from the mining company that partially funded the research, doubt the results. That's why Andrew Sweetman will now return to the Clarion-Clipperton Zone with an even larger research team.
In January 2026, the expedition will set off from San Diego, this time with even better equipment to search for hydrogen, the other product of electrolysis. If they find both oxygen and hydrogen, that would probably be the definitive proof of the geobattery theory. I am curious to see what the results will be, because it shows once again how little we know about our own planet and highlights the importance of research in protecting marine ecosystems in the long term.
Of course, I'll keep you updated on the results of the new expedition in January, so make sure to subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss anything, and don't forget to give a thumbs up so we can hit 5,000 likes. And speaking of spectacular discoveries,
the next video is about an observation that could potentially turn our understanding of the entire universe upside down. Our solar system is moving far too fast through the galaxy. Researchers suspect that this could call the entire standard model of cosmology into question. It's an absolutely crazy story. Click on the video in the top right corner to find out what it's all about. At the bottom left, you can visit my shop, where you might find the perfect Christmas gift. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.